Welcome to Fahrenheit Performance podcast episode number 43. Today we have Jon Ma in the house. I don't want to call you the elder statesman of triathlon, but you've been doing triathlon for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of actual years, it doesn't really feel that much. But when I think back to like when I started in 2008, it feels like a long time.
Yeah, it is. A lot of the people that are in triathlon now were still in primary school back in 2008. Things like Bryce and Luke and Cedric and Aaron Kiss, Feng Yu.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. When I was, I think I remember when I was racing Bryce, he wasn't even in NS yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how young he was.
Okay. Jon, so who are you and what do you do? Where have you been all these years?
Yeah, taking a leaf off my Instagram. I'm half decent, fully overrated as a triathlete. Some father, athlete, dabbling in different sports, right? Represented Singapore in triathlon, also represented Singapore in flag football, another sport that we might talk about later.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just really active.
So speaking of Instagram, I downloaded some of your pictures from Instagram.
No, not that.
And there are, you seem to have been doing triathlon since before people were wearing shorts in triathlon. And you
I'm going to need a drink.
you were doing Trifactor before 2009, before Trifactor even had a logo. What else do I see here?
Wow, you really went back on this.
I did. You have some like modeling looking pictures here. And are you human or are you Jon Ma? It is a banner here. It seemed to have done it all.
That's my best friend, by the way. He made that banner, so I had no part to play in that.
So going through your Instagram, right? I saw that you've done sprint distance, you've done 70.3, you've done Ironman, you've also used to play table tennis and air rifle apparently during high school. Is that correct?
I'm really worried about how far back you went, but yes, you're correct.
And you're the goalkeeper for your soccer team?
Yes. Reserve goalkeeper though, so I just pick up the balls.
Oh, okay. So you're just ready to go for penalty shootouts or something like that. So why did you start triathlon? 2008 was your first official triathlon, right?
Yeah.
What got you started on this long journey?
So going back a little bit, I always swam when I was a kid. I wasn't competitive, just enough to get by. I enjoyed swimming and all that. But I didn't really go anywhere with that until towards my uni days, where I just started swimming a little bit more on my own. I was sort of like doing 1.5, 2K on my own after school kind of thing, just for fun really, I think.
Stay fit.
Yeah. And only when I got to NS, when we had to do all the 2.4K runs for IBBT, was when I realized that, oh wow, I'm not too shabby as a runner, right?
So hey, you just never really ran competitively before, but you just had the aerobic endurance, or guess to
yeah, I mean maybe because my surname is Ma, right? I guess that runs.
Yep.
Runs in the family. Yeah. So realized that I could run, and so after NS, when I got to uni and US, this was when I started doing swimming and running together.
Yep.
Or better known as aquathlon.
Aquathlon, yeah.
So we had the NUS aquathlon team back in then.
Also, that's what your first event was, or was it aquathlon?
Yeah, so it was actually like a CCA, it was like a club.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
okay.
so I joined them, got started training kind of properly in a way. Then my really good friend, Jia Jie, shout out, this was like, hey, why don't I lend you my bike? You give the OSIM sprint triathlon a try. So
OSIM sprint triathlon doesn't even exist anymore, does it?
No, not anymore. Yeah, so that was really way back. So I decided to give it a try. I still remember borrowing his bike, falling off the bike many times, but somehow managed to make it to a start line.
Yeah.
finished the race.
Oh, before you got to the start line, you fell off. I thought you were going to say during the race. Okay.
Yes, thankfully I didn't crash during the race. And I didn't break his bike as well. So after I finished the race, I was stoked. I was like, what is this? This feels so good. So immediately after that race, on that very night, I signed up for the Aviva 70.3 Singapore.
Which is the one that used to be in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that actually there was a 70.3, like an Ironman branded 70.3 in Singapore.
Yeah, so there was, in those days, right, the 2007, 2008, 2009 was when they were doing it.
Okay. So where was the swim and where was the bike, where was the run? Like all the triathlons now is in and out of East Coast Park, or there used to be one down at Changi Village sort of area, but this is wasn't there, right?
Yeah, so
I can't imagine doing 90 kilometers in East Coast Park.
the swim and the run was also at East Coast Park, but the fun part was, so actually you take the bike, you go out past Big Splash, up ECP, Benjamin Shears Bridge. So that's steep part, and back then there was no Marina Bay, no Marina Bay Sands rather.
Yeah.
So you take that long downhill down and then continue on the ECP all the way until you hit West Coast.
So basically where Marina Bay Sands is now, you bypass that area around the back and it ends up with Keppel Viaduct. So sort of like the Sand Chart there, right? Down that area.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So the bike, you continue all the way down to on the viaduct along Pasir Panjang.
Yeah.
And there's a U-turn around there and all the way back to Big Splash. So that's one loop, about 30k. And so you do 3 loops of that.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bike course. Like, it's fast. You have crosswinds from the side, from the sea.
And you got a hill.
Yeah, you got a hill, but it's really fun and enjoyable to ride because, I mean, Singapore roads are amazing, right? And you get the view. So I love that bike course. It was so much fun.
So did you do that every year from 2008 onwards?
So my first one was 2008. Did the 2009 as well. So those are the 2 that I did.
Okay. And they stopped doing that. So I arrived here 2012. I think that maybe even the last year they did it, or the year before that, 2011, they might have stopped it around then.
Yeah, so if my memory serves, 2009 or 2010 was the last one that they had the bike course that goes out.
Okay.
Then because of, I think MBS was going under construction, they stopped the bike course there, so it was at 3 loops of Coastal Road. So,
yeah.
I mean, we all train on Coastal Road, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to pay like 400 bucks to ride what I really do every weekend.
Yeah. And then how'd you do on your first 70.3? Because you're jumping from aquathlon to sprint distance to 70.3, right? That's a pretty steep learning curve.
Oh, yeah.
Were you like woefully unprepared, or did you train like crazy? What's the deal?
Actually, the training went pretty decent, I would say. So I have my friends who were training for it as well. Shout out Jia Jie, Jason, Nicholas, Norman, Lemin, right? All my NUS buddies. They got me.
So did they all go from aquathlon? They all started with you in the aquathlon and then all ended up in 7.3 altogether?
Yeah, so we're all like the NUS aquathlon team.
Yep.
And then we kind of trained together all the time. I think we saw each other more than our own families.
Yeah.
So we were training for the 2008 version of the race, and the first one. So I had this little incident on the bike. So the bike path was actually next. What they do is they just put up barriers on the road, and that separates from where the cars and the bikes are.
Like the red and white water barriers.
Exactly. So that year, somebody actually threw thumbtacks onto the bike course, and Singapore triathlete. Yeah.
So someone just grabbed a whole bunch of thumbtacks and just threw it and just sabotaged all the cyclists.
Yeah, so there was easily a patch of thumbtacks. We actually saw it, but at the point didn't really realize what it was until I remember going back to the service road on ECP, and I was like wondering, something feels weird. I looked down and I saw both my front and back wheels deflated, punctured, right? So, but thankfully I had the spares to fix my own flats, because back then you just bring everything with you.
Yep.
So I was changing all my tubes and everything. Once I was done, go back cycling again, another flat, and I realized that there was one more tiny piece of thumbtack stuck in my wheel.
Yeah, you always got to run your finger in the inside, but during a race you don't do that.
Yeah, because you're in such a rush to get back in the race, right? So that was my third puncture, and I thought like, oh shit, like my race is done for. Thankfully, my friend passed by. I think it was Jia Jie. He came and he was like, take my spare, threw it to me, and I fixed that third flat. Managed to finish the bike.
So you'd collected all the thumbtacks, and then he had a nice free run all the way through.
Maybe there was a lot of people who got thumbtacked on that race. I think not everyone's as fortunate as me to have like friends who throw you spares and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but got through it, finished the race. Can't really remember my time, but it was a good first experience. Yeah.
So if you'd stopped for 3 flat tires, you probably wouldn't have a super great time.
It was just, but I think I went into that race with the expectation that I just wanted to finish. Because it was my second triathlon, first 70.3. Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess you're by that stage you're hooked, right? How did you do on the second time around on the same course?
So the second time around, so I definitely went in like trying to be a bit more prepared.
1 year wiser.
1 year wiser, a lot more races wiser, because in between we were going to like Malaysia for the races. You know, your Lake Kenya, Port Dickson and all that. Got a proper tri bike, I think, this time around, and was doing a lot more training up to that. So I had a bit better expectations for myself.
Is that when you had the super long tail on your helmet? I've got that photo.
Yeah.
I've got that photo as well.
So I was wearing full for the uninitiated. So Chris McCormack was a thing back then.
Yeah.
Like he was this figure in triathlon, and I was a big fan. So I was trying to look like him on the race.
So if it works for him, it's going to work for you, right?
Yeah, somewhat. No cosplaying in triathlon. So that was what I was trying to do. So I had that red Aero helmet, the same Specialized one that he had. My kit was red, everything was red, and just thought like, yeah, if I look like him, I might be able to pull out something like him.
But he actually came to the race, didn't he? Like Chris McCormack and Craig Alexander and a bunch of the pros came up. I guess they're in Australia anyway. They came up for the Singapore 70.3.
Yeah. So Mecca and Chloe came up for that one.
Yeah.
I was super excited. Yes. I think the year before Mecca won the World Championship, I think. So he was, I mean, forgive me if my facts are a bit wrong. But so it was like played up that there was this rivalry between the two of them. I still have the newspaper clipping of their arrival in Singapore in my room.
Because Craig Alexander was like a few years after Mecca, right? So Mecca was on the top and Craig Alexander was sort of the rising star.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was back when, like, you know, Newton's shoes, he was like one of the pro athletes wearing Newton's shoes. And
Newton shoes? Who has Newton shoes anymore?
So it was very exciting, and I was beyond stoked to be like racing on the same course as them, which I think in triathlon, that's a unique thing about triathlon.
Yeah.
You get to race the exact same course as the pros do.
At the same time.
At the same time, you don't really see this in any other sport, right? You all suffer the same kind of conditions together. If it's 36 degrees heat, it's 36 degrees heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the bad thing is that you don't get to spectate their race.
Yeah, that's true. You get to waddle in your own suffering.
Yeah. And they finish like an hour before you as well.
They might be welcoming you to the finish line.
In jeans.
Yeah.
Okay, so then your first few 70.3s went quite well. Yep. Then I saw that you did a full Ironman shortly after that as well. Said, when did you do your first full Ironman?
So the first one was 2010 in Frankfurt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did that go? Is an Ironman just 2 half Ironmans put together?
Oh no, God, no. I always tell this to the people I train with. Elevate. Yeah. You can get, not that I'm recommending this to anyone, but you can get away with a half Ironman, kind of half-assing your training, right? Pardon my French. But you can't do that with a full.
Yeah.
You really, unless you really like to suffer for unimaginable reasons.
Or if you're just doing it to finish.
Yeah.
You're trying to do it in 15 hours or 16 hours maybe.
Yeah, but even then you're going to have a really horrible day because your body takes that beating over that whole day.
Yeah, you still cover the same amount of distance, right? It's just over a longer period of time.
Exactly. In fact, you're out there for even longer, which is, right? You stretch out your suffering, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think that year I had a relatively good year. So in Singapore, I qualified for the 70.3 World Champs.
Oh, okay.
World Champs.
Yep.
Right. For Clearwater, Florida. So that was going to happen in October that year, in 2010.
Yep.
Before that, I had the Frankfurt Ironman lined up in July. I still remember it was 4th July. Independence
Day. Yeah.
So the training for that effectively for me was I doubled all my mileage just going through that. I mean, that's the easy way to go about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And but for me, the main thing was really just learning how to eat on the bike.
Yep.
Knowing your nutrition, what you needed. Frankfurt, thankfully, was a much cooler course compared to Singapore, right? But just the duration alone that you spend on the bike, you can't underestimate your nutrition needs.
Yeah, and even if you had got you knew about nutrition, because back then a lot of people didn't really know about nutrition, right? The nutrition that people were taking back then was basically electrolytes, right? It was just like Powerade and Gatorade. The thought process was you're losing salt, replace the salt. But nowadays, nutrition is about carbs and protein and replacing the energy more so than replacing the salt, right?
Yeah, I think nowadays there's a lot more avenues for you to know how much calories, sodium, whatever nutrients you might need, right? You can do your salt sweat test, and whatnot. Back then, it was just really try and error.
Yeah.
So every weekend when we go out for your long ride, we are trying to eat a certain amount just to understand like how much your stomach can take and how you feel when you get off for like a short run after that, how you feel at the end of the bike. So it was really try and error. As my mileage got longer over the weekends, I would be like trying to eat a little bit more. How did I feel? Oh, water isn't cutting it anymore. I need salt. Like, so you have those salt tablets and everything. So those were like, to me, the so-called good old days where it was just trying to trust what your body tells you and figuring out things for yourself.
Yeah.
Of course, now with all the technology and tests that you can do, you can't take the guesstimation out of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like the experience that I had gave me much better knowledge of my body. Like I understood how my body feels at a certain point and what I needed, so I could read my body a lot more.
Yeah. And then a lot of people don't realize that if you're not eating on the bike on these long races, it's too late once you get to the run.
Oh,
right. It's just because it's harder to eat, and it's also there's a time lapse when you eat and when it gets dispersed into the bloodstream, right?
Yeah. We always say that on the bike is when you have a buffet. So I always like to have like bars. I don't like to take gels on the bike because for me that's on the run.
Yeah.
I like to eat bars, gummies, bananas. So you'll see that I have like stuff stashed either on the bike or in the back pocket.
So you have a bento box on the top tube just full of snacks.
Yeah. So it's really you're eating throughout the whole bike because you know that after that you have a full marathon to run. And you don't want to enter the marathon with a deficit. You need a surplus going in.
Yeah. So tell me this: have you run a full marathon without the swim and the bike before?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay. So what was your time for the full marathon? Just fresh.
I think my best timing for a marathon was maybe 3:30 in that region.
Okay. And then so when you're doing a Ironman, what's your time for the marathon? Just to gauge how much time you can expect to lose.
I've always ran. I mean, I've done 3 Ironmans, right? So,
Ironman.
Yeah. I've always ran sub 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 25 minutes is what you'd lose for during the Ironman.
Yeah. I do get into a relatively consistent. Once I get into the zone, mentally I just switch off. My legs will just keep carrying me on. Like I tend not to overthink and just keep going left foot, right foot.
Yep.
Get your nutrition in and just keep going.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And then somewhere along the line, you got into Kona, right? 2018. So I met you, must have been 2017, maybe 2018, when you're getting ready for Kona, right? What was your path to get to Kona?
Yeah, so I think we met 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah, so between my first Ironman and the second one, which was first Ironman in Frankfurt, 2010. The second one was Greye, Korea, 2017. So there was that 7-year gap in between I was doing. So I started with long course triathlon, right? All the half and full Ironmans. I went down in distance doing your ITU triathlons, right?
Okay, so you started aquathlon, then you went to sprint distance, you jumped 70.3, then you went to Ironman, and then it's like, okay, I've done the full set. Now you went back to ITU to do like regional races, I guess.
Yeah, so between I think from 2011 all the way to 2016, I was doing short course triathlon on Olympic distance, draft legal.
Yep.
So very different way of racing compared to doing an Ironman or half Ironman.
Yep.
Because in half and the full Ironman, I think for each groupers, most of the time you're just racing yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to get to the finish line. You're trying to expand your energy evenly across till you reach the finish line. Whereas for short course racing, you're racing everybody else. So you really had to learn how to read, play tactics with the group, right?
Yeah, if you miss the gap, you're gonna get dropped, right? And you can't think, oh, my FTP is 250 and I'm at 260. I'm gonna just stay away. You gotta, if it goes, you gotta go, and you deal with the consequences later, right?
Yeah, you don't really look at your numbers so much. It's just like, I'm going, like this guy's going, I have to follow him. Otherwise, what's the point of racing, right?
Yeah.
So that was that 2011, 2016 period.
Did you enjoy that more or less than, looking back on it, more or less than the long course stuff?
I think it's hard to really say which one I enjoyed better, but it gave me a different perspective to doing triathlon, as well as I think I discovered a different way of training as well, rather than just clocking the mileage. Just you try to do distance and up your threshold pace. Yeah. Right now you're saying going up into sprints, and then you're trying to, once you go up into sprint, you're going back to threshold, right? There's no letting off the gas.
Yeah.
So it was a very different way of...
It's a fine line as well. Yeah. You need to work out where the line... You got to work out where the line is by trial and error almost.
Yeah, but the fun part of that was that... Because back then there was this... Or now there still is the Asian Cup where you race around the region. You make a lot of friends along the way, right? So I made friends with my good friends in Malaysia and Philippines. In the race, we actually look out for each other.
Okay.
So we'll be like...
strategy, a little team... Not teammates, but... You, like, if there's someone else that you don't know, you'd work together to beat that person.
Yeah, or you do meet some, I shan't name the country, but there are certain countries who have a reputation for not putting in the work on the bike.
Yeah.
So when they ask you to, go in front, you just be like, nah, I'm not going in front, you go. Right? So that was very fun, actually. I did enjoy the tactical sense of it, of having to play that game on the bike while you are going almost full gas.
It's a chess game, right? It's a mind game, sort of chess game, and people are sandbagging to get you on the run, and then you're trying to drop them or play the game, right?
Yeah. Not to say that it was any easier. For those who might not have done draft legal racing, right? It really is, you're coming out of every U-turn, every corner, trying to get into a sprint again. You're trying to drop the people behind you or trying to catch up with the people who are sprinting in front of you. And it's just a lot of surges up and down. Staying into the draft pack, as easy as it might sound, it's not easy at all.
And you're trying to do it at all costs as well, right? You just, once you drop, you're out of the race. Unless you're a super strong runner, it's really hard.
Yeah, just the swim alone, the first 200 meters, 300 meters is an all-out sprint. So you have people who are trying to drop you from the very start of the race. Your heart rate spikes to like 180, and you still have to hold that on for at least the rest of the race, right? You still have a 40k bike and a 10k run to go.
Yeah. And this is the days of my pal Willie, right? Willie and Clement.
Yeah.
This is the back in those days where all you guys are racing together.
Yeah.
So that was your so you made the SEA Games one year, or you reserved in the SEA Games one year? What year was that, and where was that?
I think it was 2015. The SEA Games was held in Singapore.
That was on Singapore, right?
So there was a qualifying race to make the squad for the SEA Games.
Yeah.
So the top two would be in the squad for that, right?
Yeah.
I finished third.
That's like the worst spot, right? But you still got was it a reserve spot, or was it you still made the team, right?
So I was a reserve. Still had to keep training,
of course. Just in case something happens.
You didn't know, exactly. You didn't know if one of the two guys. I mean, I wasn't hoping for that to happen, but at the same time, I knew that if the call came, I had to be ready. I can't be like, oh wait, shit, I stopped training and then
and it could happen all the way to the day of the race. It could be food poisoning the day before or something, right? And
But I think the thing was, I think TAS on their end, they didn't really communicate it properly to the. So myself and one other athlete, Shui, we had the reserves. They didn't communicate to us, so we were just training throughout. And at one point, we were wondering, at some point, there has got to be a cut-off, right? Whereby you can't have a reserve replace anymore. It was only until like we emailed in and we were said like, oh yeah, if anything happens at this point, we can't replace the names anymore. So that's it.
Okay.
So we're like, oh, okay.
Thanks for telling us.
Yeah. But oh well, I mean, it was a good experience. I enjoyed racing with the two of them as well, Clement and Willie. We had some really epic races between the three of us. Bryce was, I think, I don't know, 15, 16-year-old at that point of time.
Up and coming.
Yeah, up and coming. He just, I think, went up in distance from sprint to Olympic distance. So he was still quite new to that. We had a lot of fun racing each other. It was very competitive. And those were like the good old days, I would say.
Yep. So now that you've done your national duties of representing Singapore triathlon and doing the Asia Cups and stuff, you started to focus back on the longer stuff, right? For Kona, when I've never fathomed doing an Ironman, but once you're qualified for Kona, it's a big deal, right? So you have like a year to prepare, or 8 months to prepare from when you qualified to when you go to. What were you doing? Were you doing anything different as a qualifier for that particular race? Because it suddenly becomes your A race, right?
Yeah. So I had that 7 year of racing short course in between my first and second Ironman. Went back to that. So for Korea, I didn't really have much expectations.
When I did the bike fit for you, was that before Korea?
Yeah, before Korea.
Okay, so then on that new bike, you qualified.
Yeah.
Or you won Korea for your age group, right?
Yeah, I won my age group there.
Okay, and then how long was that before Kona?
So that was, I think Korea was in September or early October, if I'm not wrong. Kona was the year following in late October. So I had roughly a year to prepare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were races from then on just training for the big dance at Kona, or how did you prepare for that in that year?
So after Korea, I took a short break, right? You just need to let the body and the mind take a break, recover. Then after that, it was eyes full on Kona.
Yeah.
Like everything that you do was prepared for that. Admittedly, going to Korea, I felt like my bike and run fitness was still not up to where I liked it to be. So before Korea, actually I had a bike crash at Mandai Road. I was going down Mandai for 8 km per hour, I still remember.
Near the zoo.
Yeah, near the zoo, exactly. The junction, crashed in a motorbike who turned into the junction early. Right, it was not his turn yet to turn, but he did. So we crashed. I broke the bike. Had to buy a new bike, as well as let all the wounds recover. So that kind of disrupted my bike training. Actually, training for everything, in fact. So I knew I went to Korea a little bit under-prepared. Had a really, really bad run in Korea. I was walking for, I think, majority of the marathon.
So you must have had a pretty big leader coming off the bike then if you managed just to win, struggling to the run.
So the funny thing is, actually, I went to Korea without really thinking that I want to win my age group or anything. I just really want to do a
strong race.
Just do a strong race. If I could go like below it, do a 10-hour-ish similar to my time in Frankfurt, I would be really happy. So unknowingly won the race. I rather won my age group because throughout the whole run, I was feeling so horrible. I was walking. I easily felt like I walked 1/3 of the marathon. I saw one guy who was in front. He looked like my age, so I thought, oh, this guy's gonna win my age group. Turns out he was 2 age groups below.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but because he's Angmo, so he looks a little bit older.
Okay.
Yeah. So only after I crossed I think when I was reaching the finishing straight of the Ironman, that people are telling me, hey, you're winning your age group, you're first in your age group. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, nice.
So I was really happy. The photos will prove it. So took the slot for Kona because, I mean, I'm not going to give out the chance for Kona.
Yeah, of course, right. And then suddenly all eyes are on Kona. You focus, I guess, the rest of the year purely for that race.
So got a lot more biking in, a lot more running in. I was running back from work. So I work in the north and then I stay in the east. So I was clocking like long runs.
I used to do that as well when I used to live in America. I used to Belinda used to drop me at work, and I used to just run home from work 10 miles or something.
It makes sense because it saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would run back. You will reach about 30K just to run back. But that was like my training in. I get back home, I can have my dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that worked out.
Okay. And then did you do any other races between those races?
I think I did a couple of. I did a challenge race. Challenge Heeresbergen, which is in Belgium.
Okay.
Yeah. Not very well known, but
Never heard of
the cyclists. Those who know Tour of Flanders.
Yep.
So you go up the cobblestone hill, the Mur, M-U-R. So that
You do that in the triathlon.
yes.
That's crazy.
So you do that 2 times, twice in a 45 km. So you can go up that twice, and even on the downhill is cobblestones.
Oh.
I freaked out. I was like, no. I stopped my bike at the side of the road. I had to take a moment to calm myself down. I was like, oh gosh, I have to go downhill on cobbles.
It's like mountain biking, like gravel riding these days.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was
With 23C tires.
back then. Yeah. I was riding tubulars.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was an experience. Obviously the bike I didn't have a good bike time. After my accident, the year prior, I had a little bit of a mental block.
Yeah,
phobia
PTSD.
Exactly. So every time going down, every time the speed reaches about maybe 50 km per hour, my hands will start to sweat.
Yeah.
So I will start tapping the brakes. I don't dare go any faster.
And then you got cobbles as well.
Yeah, so the Angmos, right, in the home country,
Yeah.
they would just be blazing past at 80, 90 km per hour. Right, yep, go ahead.
in the error position.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no idea how to do that. But I had a really fun run in that, and yeah.
Well, you probably had rested legs from not riding it. How did you run faster?
Yeah, and I mean, European summers are still pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
Humidity is much lower.
Yeah. It could be 30 degrees, but it's not going to feel like 30 degrees here.
Exactly. So I enjoyed that run. That was a really nice lead up race for Kona. Yeah.
And then Kona, how did it go? Did you perform as well as you wanted to?
Yeah. I had a nice swim. Found a big draft pack to swim with. So I think my swim was about 58 minutes ish.
Nice.
But I think
So for someone that's not a swimmer, that's a good time for swimming.
yeah. I think importantly, I came out just feeling fresh and excited for a race.
Yeah.
Not tired, which was important to me.
Yeah.
Got on the bike. So the bike was a little bit of a drama. The first, I think 10K, I was hearing this squeaky sound throughout. I was like looking down, like, come on, what's happening? Turns out I had one of the cables, right? Back then we still using cables. So electronic shifting was very new back then.
Yep.
The cables was rubbing on the side of my rear rim.
Okay.
So I had to get off the bike, just
Bend over,
the cable so that it stopped rubbing against. Got back on the bike. I think 40K in, I started having a bit of GI issues, gastrointestinal issues. So stopped by a porta potty on the Queen K. Got back on the bike. After a while, things were running along quite smoothly. And it was a really nice bike. The conditions were quite favorable. I would
Not
say.
so windy. It's notoriously windy, right?
Yeah, it was probably a little less windy than usual, which made for some pretty fast bike times that year. I think that was the year that I think Patrick Lange went sub 8, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So, but once you get off on the bike, you go on the run.
Yep.
It hits hard because, so the tricky thing about Kona's run, in my opinion, on top of the heat, is that because it starts in the town of Kailua Kona. So when you have all the spectators cheering you on, you feel on the high. So I was running very happily at sub 5 minute clip. I was going, yeah, this is a good run. I feel so strong. Once you get out onto a Queen K where you have this undulating terrain, basically you go up and up and up all the way until you hit the energy lap. That's when the energy starts to drain because the spectators start to dwindle in numbers, right? And it's just flat and hot. So you can see the heat waves radiating off the roof. And at that point, that was when I started to crack a little bit. So I remember along the run, Ling caught up to me. Our fastest Ironman woman. Caught up with me. We start running together in the energy lab.
So you're quite good friends with her, right?
Yeah. So I've been friends with her since I started doing triathlon. Yeah. So we were running together in the energy lab, and then I remember at one aid station where we're still running through, I actually told her, I was like, Ling, I'm going to walk this aid station. You go ahead.
Yeah, save yourself.
Yeah. So I knew I was starting to hit that wall, right?
Yeah.
So I started walking every aid station and running in between. So that was the deal I made with myself.
Yeah.
As long as I kept running in between the aid stations, I get to walk.
That's actually a pretty good strategy, actually, because the walk drops your heart rate just enough to sort of recuperate a little bit, and then when you run, it's going to instantly come back again. But that little micro breaks actually help you for a strategy. It's actually a legit strategy for racing.
Yeah. And it also helps at the aid station because you're not like fumbling with all the carbs, everything. You get to really just take your nutrition down properly and all. So that was in the energy lab. Came up, I think after a couple, by the time you come out, you're down to like 15 or 12K of running to go.
Yeah.
And I told myself, I made a deal with myself.
Well, it's only the last 10K of a marathon is always the hardest, right?
Yeah. So I made a deal with myself. I remember.
It's a deal with talking to yourself.
At the point, that's all you have, right? You've run 12K 1,000 times in your training, right?
Yeah.
You're just going to run all the way. You're not going to stop.
Yep.
And it's because on the way in, you're running up. So going back is actually a downhill.
Oh, nice.
So that helps a little bit.
Yeah.
So I was just running down.
And then the number of spectators will increase more and more and more the closer you get to town, right?
Exactly. So once you get back down in the turn into the town itself, and then you make a U-turn down Lee Drive. Oh man, the views of the spectators along that road just cheering you on.
Yeah.
I mean, just talking about it now still brings chills. Like I'm getting goosebumps. Yeah.
Because not many Singaporeans have actually done Kona, I don't think.
I have no idea. I think a certain number have, especially now that they do the legacy whereby
If you do a certain number of races, you can get in.
You might get a slot on something. I think more people have been able to do it. Yeah. But it's definitely really competitive to try and get that slot because you have either you win your each group or you hope for a roll down at one of the races.
Yeah. Then what's your thoughts of this Nice and Kona alternate years? If looking back on it, you qualified for Nice. Would you have gone at it with such gusto as Kona?
I think you can tell from my reaction. I mean, because I started triathlon watching the NBC broadcast.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Exactly. So
when you see the guy with one arm and one leg and they cross the finish line, everything's so inspirational. Or the guy with his disabled brother in the boat, and they I used to watch those videos all the time, and you get every single time I finish watching the video, I'd want to sign up for another triathlon.
Exactly. I give credit to NBC. The way they script the storyline, is done really well. So Kona has this mystic about it, and I mean, it's also where the Ironman was born, right?
Yep.
So
totally agree.
I mean, if you told me that I won an age group again, and you're telling me I'm going to Nice,
it's great, but it's not the same.
Yeah, to me it's different.
Yeah. And
I think now with the split of the ladies going Nice this year and the men in Kona, and then they switch it around the following year. In my personal opinion, right, it's a little bit of a pity because I feel like it's so much nicer to have both the men and women world championship happening at the same place.
For the buzz of all the pro women and all the pro men and all the women and all the men all the same place at the same time.
Exactly. So I think nothing can really beat the atmosphere, right? I go to Kona and I get to meet both the male pros and the female pros because the female pros have really great races there as well, right? You get to see back then was like Daniela Reeve, Lucy Charles was just up and coming. Back then there was Chrissy Wellington, Miranda Caffrey. So it was really you could see all the pros there at one go, and it feels different. Now if you tell me like, oh, I'm only gonna see one gender there, my opinion is that it's a bit of a pity. Yeah. But at the same time, I can understand there's a bit of logistical challenge with the locals.
I heard it's purely because the locals just like are fed up with just getting overrun with people.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal way is that they find a way to make it sustainable for everybody, right? For the Ironman community as well as the locals. And that's not in my hands. Oh my God. So you just gotta deal with it. Yeah, so you just gotta have your best race on the year where your gender is racing in Kona, then you gotta go to Kona.
Yeah, of course. So you're talking about your strategy during the race. Do you have any special tips or tricks that you always do for races?
I think I carried with me from my short course days, right? All the tips and tricks that I learned from those times, especially in transition, where there are things to make your transition be a lot smoother and faster.
Yep.
That carried over into an Ironman. So I tend to have relatively quick transitions in an Ironman, and just learning to understand your body in a race as well, right? Because you're not when you do short course racing, you're not looking at numbers. You're really racing based on how you feel, your heart rate, your muscles, and that to me translates well into long course as well, because I don't really like to race so much based on a fixed number. Yeah, and that's my personal preference. I feel strong, and I know that I can last, because based on my training, I know that I can last at this effort or at this heart rate for this number of hours, and I just race based on that feel. Yeah, so
not what the book tells you should be racing at, or what your number tells you should be going at.
So even now, my bike, I went into Kona, I didn't have a power meter. Yes, I raced purely based on effort.
No, but did you have a bike computer on the bike?
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, but you just didn't have a power meter on there.
Yeah, because Kona is a undulating course as well. It's not flat. So you can't really get a good gauge of your average.
And I also noticed that you spent some time in America. I also spent some time in America, right? What were you doing in America? Was that before or after triathlon, or was that in the middle of all this?
In the middle, actually. So in 2010, when I was still studying at NUS, so that was the year I qualified for the 70.3 World Championships. Yep. So I flew my bike over to New Orleans. Okay. So New Orleans was where I was doing my exchange.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did an exchange there, and then the World Championships happened to be down the street or down the state?
Yeah. So thankfully I was in New Orleans, in the state of Louisiana. I was studying at Tulane University. Yep. And the World Championships was in Florida, which was just one state away. So it was just a short flight over. Met up with my friends, Linger, back then. She just recovered from her really bad car crash the year prior. And Norman, as well as Jocelyn. So 4 Singaporeans raced the 70.3 World Championship that year.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And then, is there any big difference between the racing in America and the racing here? Did you notice?
It's a lot cooler. But I think as well, the triathlon scene in America is really huge, right? The crowds are really enthusiastic about it. So as we're racing through, you get a lot of support from the sides. I mean, obviously, the numbers you can't compare with Singapore because our population is a lot smaller as well. Yeah, but you really do feel, especially the commercial side of things, right? You go to a race expo, there's brands and products being thrown in your face. There's a lot of freebies going on. So
just look at NASCAR in America, right? There's logos on every single little thing. This is the way the Americans do things is so much more commercial and so much bigger and just a big deal, right?
Yeah, and I think back then as well, the American triathletes were performing a bit better. I mean, it's sad to say nowadays, right? Back then you had people like Andy Potts, Andrew Starakovic, and I think Miranda Kaff. No, wait, she's Australian. Sorry. Yeah, but there were a little bit more American pros who were doing better,
doing very well.
Yeah, so I think there was a bit more publicity there as well.
Okay. So by this time, your Kona 2018, right? You'd spent a good 10 years in triathlon.
Yeah.
Right? And then since Kona, I haven't seen you do a whole lot of triathlon, right? I guess there's COVID in there, and then there's a bunch of other stuff. Why have you slowed down now, and what are you doing these days? Because I know that people like you, the type A personalities, you can't just stop sport. You've got to do something, right? Yeah. If it's triathlon or running or what, but... So what keeps you busy nowadays?
So Kona was in 2018, and after that I really needed a bit of a break because I think mentally and physically I was a bit broken down. Yeah. Right.
Because an Ironman, it physically takes a lot out of you. 20 hours a week or 15 hours a week of continuous training, and the race itself is super hard.
Yeah, I mean, 1 week you're easily training for an age grouper who works a 9 to 5, pretty much. You're and still trying to fit in 20 hours of training. That kind of consumes your whole life in a way.
Yeah, it's like a part-time job on the side.
Exactly. And
which makes you tired. Which makes you tired and always hungry and grumpy.
Yeah. So 2019, early part of 2019, my daughter was born.
Oh, okay, yep.
So that was at the same a convenient excuse in a way to take a break. Like, hey, I'm going to focus on fatherhood for a bit, right?
Slow down a bit.
Just let life take its course. Then 2020, COVID happened. So there wasn't really any races going on. Didn't really have the impetus to try and do any races.
I remember in the clinic here, I didn't see a triathlete for most of 2020 because there's no races and no one's getting ready for anything. They're just riding road bikes. I saw a lot of roadies, but triathletes, they didn't start coming back until 21, 22.
Exactly. I think the local scene is still recovering from that in a bit.
Yeah.
So coming out of COVID, I actually, before COVID, and before my daughter was born, I started playing this game called flag football. So it's basically like your American football, NFL, just like it's the non-contact version.
Okay, so it's like touch rugby versus rugby.
Yeah, so instead of actually doing a live tackle where it's like body to body, you just pull this flag from
which you have tucked into your belt on the waist, on both sides, right?
Yeah. So that constitutes a tackle. So coming out of COVID, I was thinking, hey, I want to like do a little bit different things.
So from your time in America, you started to like, is that why you liked football? Because I remember seeing you saying, oh, Saints this and Saints, New Orleans Saints this, right? You followed the football team. I always wondered why you did that. So I guess you liked football from the time you were in America, and then now flag football is sort of like football, right? So
2009, the New Orleans Saints won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
2010, I was in New Orleans for my exchange. So the city was still really hyped up, and I kind of caught on to it. Since 2010 all the way till now, I've still been watching NFL games, right? Staying up wee hours a night. And so I thought, coming out of COVID, I thought that I would explore different sports for a little while.
Yep.
Since I've been taking a break from triathlon for, I think, 2 years coming out of COVID.
Yep.
So that's how I started getting into it. And I think last year we formed the national men's flag football team to compete in tournaments around. So we took part in the Asia Oceania Championship, which is basically your Southeast Asia, Middle East region, together with Australia, New Zealand. That was in KL last year in October. And just recently in August, we went up to Finland for the World Championship.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we're still a very new team, very budding sport in Singapore, very small group of people playing it. Obviously, the results weren't what we wanted, but it was good experience, and I think it also set the foundation for what we needed to do for the years ahead.
So flag football, I'm assuming the Americans play it a lot, but like American football, not the rest of the world doesn't really play American football. Is there a big worldwide community of flag football?
There actually is. So in some of the other countries, the flag football teams have been re-established. They've been around for like 10 or more years actually. So it's definitely a growing sport, and it's been included in the 2028 Olympics in LA.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So what is it going to take to get a Singapore team to LA?
I think they've not announced the qualifying standards for that yet. But rumor has it that you gotta be like ranked
top 25
of the world kind of thing. Then they'll have like your normal group stages and everything.
It's not going to be like one of those things where you get the even the worst team can go in and play, or like every once in a while you get some guy from Ghana that can't swim but he's still in the swimming team, right? Because Olympics are supposed to be inclusive, so but I guess there is a standard to get in.
Yeah, so I think it's similar to triathlon as well, whereby the nations have to clock a certain number of points in the WTC circuit in order to qualify for the Olympics. I suspect that's going to be the same concept that's used for flag football.
Yeah.
We'll wait for the news, but in the meantime, we just do what we can. We train what we can, right? Me being 36 years old, the oldest guy on the
you're the oldest guy.
Yeah, I'm the oldest guy. I'm almost twice as old as the youngest guy actually.
Wow.
Trying to transition from a endurance-based sport into doing something that's very sprint-centric.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of side-to-side sort of...
Yeah, a lot of lateral movement.
Yeah.
It was a big shock for my body as well. So I had to adapt to it. A little bit more conditioned to it nowadays, but it took a lot of work to get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what next for you? Do you have any unfinished business in triathlon? Do you want to qualify for Nice, or do you want to do anything? Are you gonna go back into triathlon, do you think?
Yeah. So I call this few years where I'm not really racing triathlons.
Your sabbatical.
Yeah, sabbatical, my hiatus. I'm still swimming a lot, open water swimming especially. I've done like a couple of Oceanmans.
Yep.
Those 10K open water swims. I still do run. I just did the Garmin Run 10K recently.
Yep.
Not too shabby.
I remember seeing you at the track getting ready for that, cramming for it.
Yeah, hugging the Buddha. Go get back on the bike a bit. I kind of fixed up back my bike, and this year as well as start riding it. The bike fit that you did for me still works. Thankfully, I'm still as flexible.
I think the only difference between then and now would be a lot of people tilt up their aero bars now.
Yeah.
But back then it was like everything was flat and it's like an arrow, and now people are like tilting up the bars. But
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I might just come back for another fit.
Yeah, of course.
And so for next year, I am looking at a couple of races. I'm very tempted. But at the same time, I just need to work out my scheduling to make sure that I don't burn off all my matches.
Yeah. Cool, man. So what's the best way to get a hold of you? Mahjong, right?
Yeah, that's my Instagram. That's the best way to reach me.
But the O is a 0.
Yes.
Right? So it's MAJO0NG.
Yeah.
Right.
Will represent my absolutely lack of talent.
Okay, man. Thanks so much for coming in. I think we will catch up again soon, okay?
Yep, definitely. Thanks for having me.
No worries.